Got a tricky one here today. 23 Malibu, less than 15,000 miles, I believe. Customer said the left front floor gets wet when it rains. It's at a body shop. They pulled the fender off looking for it, couldn't find it. I water tested it, and initially I didn't find it, and the car's not particularly wet. So it hasn't rained here in about a week and a half, and you know, it's pretty dry. So however much it got wet has dried out, and I was about to give up on it, and I happened to pull the kick panel off, which goes right here, just to look up in this little cavity. And there's a reason I did that. The little floor inside that cavity, which I'll show you just directly, it's tubular. It's hollow all the way up here and really all the way to the A-pillar. So anything that penetrates this thing, like these, or the hinges, or the wiring harness, or the door check, anything, and then there's all kinds of stuff up there in the front behind the fender. The body seam that's up there is subject to leak. I mean, it's just, you know, just like any other car. It's nothing particular to a Chevrolet or Malibu. Anything, that's where it's put together, and that's where it can leak. Well, let me show you what I found. Now, if you're going to do this kind of work, you got to learn how to look into little nooks and crannies. So sometimes the nooks and crannies really aren't that accessible. So these little clips here, these holes, not clips, but they're little holes where the clips for the kick panel snap in. Well, it's hollow back in there, and so what I do is, let's see if you can see. Well, you can kind of see the wall in there, right? You can see that foam. So you move back and forth, and you can look down in there, and there's no way I can do this on camera, but I know if I can look in there, I can see the bottom. Oh yeah, actually you might can. The bottom of that little floor in there. And they all have a floor. None of them just go straight to, none of them I've ever seen anyway, go straight through to the ground. Now, you can use this for really any kind of car that's got a mystery leak in the front on either side. They all pretty much have this cavity, and they all pretty much have this little floor down here. Sometimes it's a plastic piece, sometimes it's metal, sometimes it's foam. In this case, it appears to be metal with some foam sealer in there. Anyway, I looked down in that little nook down in there, and it looked like a pollen line. Now, this is March in the south. There's plenty of pollen. This is near the end of March. And so whenever it makes it easier to find leaks, because wherever water leaks and it dries up, it leaves a ring of pollen behind. I looked down and I saw a little dust line down there. I said, you know, that looks like water was there, but there's no water there now. So I put some water up on the top of the fender. The fender was still on it at that point. And I didn't see anything in there. So this shop wanted the fender taken off, so they sent it to their body shop and had the fender taken off. And I said, well, let me go up there and look at it again, because I am suspicious of that corner. And so here I am. And so what I've done is I've popped this little wiring harness that sits up in this hole here, because this hole is pretty good size. And what you can see back there is when you pour water up at the top of the fender, you see that gray sealer right there. That itself is not leaking, but you can see right down at the bottom, I think, right down at the bottom, there is a little water standing in there where I water tested it. Okay, so yeah, right in there, right there, there's water standing. Not much, but a little bit. And when before it was wet, it was dry today, and I saw the yellow pollen ring. So the water comes from higher than that, like way up, You can't see it. I tried looking with the mirror and the light and everything. So since they had the fender off, that was kind of handy. I'll show you what I found. Now, I'm not going to tell you you couldn't get to this without the fender being removed, but it sure is a lot easier. From here to here, let's see here, from about here, you see this foam sealer? This is factory. And then there's foam sealer right here, which is factory. But from there to there, there's two pieces of metal there. It was an open hole. And I narrowed it down to, I have a tube that I can squirt water in, you know, like with my mouth or with, you know, through. I put it right on there and wedged it on there and got in there. And it's when I would drop it in there, in that hole, it would come immediately down into that cavity down there. So I have sealed it. You can kind of seal this sealer. See this sealer? You can see this sealer here, and it's still wet, so I don't really want to mess with it too much. But this has stopped the leak. So if you've got a 23 Malibu with a mystery leak in either front floor, they can't find it, you may want to pull that kick panel off and look up in there and see if you've got a ring where water was. Now, that said, this problem here is not unique to a Malibu or to GM in general. I've seen loads of Fords and Dodges with this also. So anywhere could have been leaking. This whole seam could have been leaking. Let me zoom out a little bit. This whole seam could have been leaking. These welds right here could have been leaking. These door hinges could have been leaking. You know, this right here, those are spot welds. It could have been leaking, or this, anything under here, that could be leaking. I mean, that's almost a gap right there, but it doesn't leak. So apparently it's sealed up under there, because believe me, I hammered it. It could be leaking back in here, but the bottom line is that place I showed you inside, that's in there. And it's got a floor probably around right about this level, and it'll build up and it'll spill over into your interior. And upon a water test, you will never, ever see that water. It's got to rain for a little while before it builds up enough to spill over. So if you water test it for like 5 or 10 minutes, you probably will never, ever see the water. So you got to go look to see where it was sometimes. And that's what we did, and that's what we have done to fix this. So anyway, this is a 23 Malibu, but this process really works for anything. If you've got a mystery leak in the front, and it's not windshield, sunroof drains, you know, normal door coming out from under the doors, anything like that, you might want to pull that kick panel off, because all cars have some kind of little cavity behind there. And look up in there with a flashlight, look all around, and try to find the floor and see if you've got evidence of water. A lot of times if the car is old enough, this car is fairly new. If the car is really old and it's been, like, say, spraying up through this seam right here and from the tire, then it'll be all dirty in there. So if enough water, if it's leaked long enough, this car is too new. If it's leaked long enough, it'll be dirty in there, and that'll be a dead giveaway. But I found a little ring, and sure enough, that was it. So questions, comments, anything I can do to help, let me know. Thanks for watching.